Yo! Hey everybody, live from Devoxx UK in guess where?
In sunny London. It is sunny.
It is actually sunny. It's freakishly warm. Actually, I'm sweating. It's London. You're not sweating because you're in shape, whereas me, I'm a wheezy old bastard. But nonetheless, it's hot.
It is. It is pleasantly warm.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just about to say it's unpleasantly warm for me. You're like rubbing it in. It doesn't feel good.
No. We need to acknowledge that there are many people in the world who have worse weather conditions and situations in general. So
very true.
Let's be mindful of everyone and enjoy while the sunny weather lasts here.
Yeah. So we told everybody where we are. Where are you all from? Like where are people joining us from? If you're in the sessions right now at Devoxx UK and you're joining this live stream, then just hang up right now and go watch those sessions. But otherwise, welcome. I'm joined today by the one, the only. This is not your first time on this show.
It is not. I think the last time we recorded, we were at Devoxx UK.
No way. Really?
Yeah. We were at the hotel down there.
Oh my God.
Next to
the really nice one, the Porters or something.
Yes. We're in the lobby, and there was like a table with people celebrating something next to us, and that was lovely.
Oh, I do vaguely remember this. That was a long time ago. That was a year ago, you would even say.
Maybe even more, but I think a year ago. Yeah, so I'm very honored to be here as well. My name is Oleg.
Yeah, actually, you're sitting at a very uncomfortable angle. Let me just put this here, and there you go. That's a little bit better. And there we go. So yeah, you're the one, the only, the amazing Oleg Šelajev. Sorry.
It's fine. It's a transcription of the Slavic surname into Estonian that is then written with English letters, and then it's fine.
And then you add my astonishing levels of ignorance to the mix, and it's a bad result.
You did well.
You swing and a miss. You got to try.
Yes.
Got to go for it. Okay, whatever. I've only known you for like 15 years. Give me another 15 years, and it'll be fine. Hey, are you involved anymore in the virtual jug?
I'm not. But it doesn't mean that virtual drag is currently in the best shape ever in years.
Yeah, it's
right?
good.
So it's super interesting. So the pandemic hit, everyone went online, and we figured that we don't need another online sort of conference event thing going on, which is unfortunate. So we stopped our operations for a while.
I mean, the pandemic was bad for other reasons too, but yeah.
Yeah. So that was unideal. But then nowadays, we were approached by the amazing people at Devoxx UK.
Yeah.
And there was a transition of interest and sort of power. So now the team that runs Devoxx UK is also bringing Virtual Jug back to life. And
yay!
They would do a much better job than us, because they have interest, and they also have the professional capacity to deal with that, right? They can connect you with other local user groups.
Well, okay, I'm going to go ahead. They're doing a great job, but I don't want to discount what you did before. You and Simon, who's here today. I saw him. Did you see him recently?
Yes. We had a little zero turnaround reunion.
Yeah, good old days.
Here at the conference.
So one of the things that made me love that show is I could see you and Simon kind of figuring it out. Like you had started with crappy equipment, and then it just got better and better, and it was more consistent. And then eventually, because you weren't like, I mean, you were, but you were also like figuring it out, and you had this enthusiasm that you only find in somebody who doesn't know what the end of the line looks like. It doesn't know what the reward looks like. There was these 24-hour V-jugs. Remember those? All night and all day, just bloodshot eyes. And
we did 2 of those.
Oh my goodness!
And that was an incredibly sort of optimistic way to do things. We run 2 conferences that span 24 hours. So there were 24 sessions for the worldwide virtual Java user group event. We partnered with the local jugs that were in the appropriate time zone. We had sponsors, and we had 3 hosts to handle a 24-hour span. So that was very interesting, because it's really not that convenient. And we also, interestingly enough, neither of the times we had the plan B. It was amazing. If something would go wrong, the whole thing would just go down, and we had no means of restoring it. So but it worked. It worked out. We were young, and we were lucky. So.
And a little foolishness is very good if you need to be brave,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Not knowing what's impossible can let you go far in
Yeah.
life.
So I love those. I love those. I mean, obviously, I know that the Devoxx crew, the Devoxx UK crew, will do a great job. But I also know that show was ahead of its time by a full decade. Now lots of big shows are doing. I mean, during the pandemic, we got only online,
Yes.
and now there's still a lot of things that are hybrid. It's a very useful thing. But you were the first, one of the first, but the first in the Java community to really take that venue and medium seriously.
Yes, yes. And the technology was a little bit slower and not as refined for streaming, for connecting online people, but it was there. And in retrospect, it was sort of an obvious idea, but it just had somebody needed to have that undying optimism that could work. And we ran with it, and it was a great time.
And what I loved about it was we were all, so at the time I felt like I saw you, unluckily for you, but very lucky for me, I saw you almost everywhere, and then I saw Simon almost everywhere.
Yes.
It felt like we were all traveling a lot more, and now we're older and budgets are different and whatever. So I see people less, and I'm sure, I don't know what your situation is, but
I'm consciously trying to travel a little bit less.
Yeah.
I think traveling too much is
you end up, you look like this.
It's hard both on individuals, and also I feel like there's a lot. So I'm a developer advocate, right? And in a DevRel role, and I think there are a lot more that one can do with DevRel and connecting communities and educating people, and while traveling and seeing people in real life, and that has immense value. There is also a lot of work that can be done online, and that is an equally important part of the job.
For sure. So that's why I love this event. It's time tested, right? I can still be engaged, involved, and interested, even if I'm not on planes as much. And it was just a really great idea. But we're here. You and I did travel. You a little bit less than I this time to get here, but I think you were just at DevNexus too, right?
Yes, I was at DevNexus.
So in that case, you traveled more than I did then.
For that one, that was a very, very good event. I personally feel one of the best Java-oriented community events
very good all around the planet.
In North America, for sure.
I was gonna say the world.
Well, yeah, but
we
love DevNexus.
Okay.
We love other events as well.
Sure. Were you at the Devoxx Friends?
No, unfortunately, but I was just on. That was for a good reason. I had a 2-week vacation, so I couldn't travel just before that. And I would love to come both to Devoxx Paris and to Devoxx Greece, which I've heard very good things about.
Great show.
But not this year.
No, I didn't do Greece this year. Last year I did. It was great, and I'm sure it was great this year. But Devoxx Friends, I think, is now the biggest show in the world. Bigger than Belgium. 4,000 people, I think, or 3,500, whatever, some crazy number. So, and of course, we don't have a Java 1, right? Although I hear that's...
I've seen some notes that it might be coming back in 2025.
Yeah,
in spring. We'll see how the marketing materials and the information about that will appear.
Yeah.
But Java 1 definitely was a staple of Java conferences for a while.
It was the water cooler for the community. It was the place to go. That and the serverside.com. And now things are all different. But anyway, that DevNexus and Devoxx France are these two huge... Spring 1 is almost as big as actually, it's probably a little bit bigger than DevNexus, but it's it's a spring show, not a purely Java show, right? So I exclude this from the ranking. When I'm talking about just pure anybody who can do something that compiles into a .class file has a spot.
Yes.
In those kinds of rankings. And what was the one you did at Zero Turnaround?
We had a show called Geek Out.
Yes.
That was a wonderful
in Estonia,
conference in Estonia.
I did that once or twice. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. I think we did a good job. We just run with what we thought would allow us to do a great conference, and
I remember I landed.
Put our soul into that.
It was a great show. I remember landing and literally running on stage. I was so close. I almost missed my own talk. It was minutes, seconds to spare.
Yes, I remember that as well. You gave all us a little scare.
I'm sorry.
No, but let's stop with this
today.
Old people's talk.
Yeah, done with that. Okay, fine. Let's talk about the current stuff. So today, this is interesting to me because you are always working in really cool things. You were at Zero Turnaround, really great company, really cool technology, great culture, and then you went to Oracle, which you went to Oracle Labs. So great culture, great technology, great people. And then that was Growl VM.
Yes.
Again, you were ahead of the time, right? It wasn't an obvious win when you joined. And obviously now the whole world's standardized around it, sort of, and no small part thanks to you,
Thank you.
obviously. And I still reference your injecting an R function into a Spring app blog.
Nice.
It's
Thank
such
you.
a great blog. I love that. It just opened my mind up to like, oh, there are possibilities here. And then you went to Atomic Jar,
Yes.
which is my friend Sergey from. He was at Pivotal at the time.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you ever, I don't know if anybody here knows Sergey Egorov. He, God, he's been on the show first of all, so I suppose I should just reference that. But quick primer, he was on the Reactor team. He created what's that thing that allows you to take Java 8 and run
It's
it
called
on
Jabel.
Jabal. Yeah, he created a thing where you could run Java 8 lambdas on older versions of the bytecode.
So Sergey is an absolutely brilliant engineer.
Genius.
He's a genius level engineer. He, time and time again, like
He created
creates
Blockhound.
over like the weekend projects.
Yeah.
Which when I do that, and like by no means I'm a mediocre engineer, right? At best. When I code something, when I like it becomes like a toy project at best, right? Or like a sample application where like you can run it, but it's just like you can run and look at it, right?
Right.
And Sergey has created many projects where
They have enduring life.
yes, and they are actually useful, and there are other people who can be like, oh yeah, this is great, let me take it further, let me use it, and just I think even recently I saw his tweet stream
Or Go program.
no, he created something with Docker, something like a way to use tools in Dockerized containers was like sort of like say Docker call, and then you call in utility within the Docker container, and somehow it interacts with your file systems and everything, and you can just do things without installing them or without like run. Like it's a great thing, right?
Yeah.
And then it's it can be useful, and I think it will be useful, and I think people will be using it even if he would like move on. And then and then the things like Bloodhound, right?
Bloodhound.
Like for finding blocking holes in reactive applications.
Code. And he created, I mean, just so many obviously great things. And even the small things, these little operators that he added to Reactor were like brilliant. Just everything he does is like, oh, that's impactful. That'll benefit a lot of people tomorrow, like immediately, And then concurrent with all this, as his personal side project kind of thing, he was one of the major contributors to test containers.
Yes.
Which of course is now again a standard. If you're not testing with test containers, you're doing it wrong. Basically, if you're doing any kind of pseudo or full-on integration tests and you're not using test containers, you're
missing out.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong. I would question whether you've actually paid attention to your industry if you didn't know about it and use it whenever you could. So just amazing. And he, who was the other guy on test containers?
There was Richard North.
Yeah.
Who was the original author of the first test containers library.
What's he doing? Is he still?
He's still in IT, but I think he figured that the startup life wasn't particularly fitting.
It can be difficult. It is.
It is very volatile and very stressful and very difficult. And then he took some time off. And I think he's back in the industry.
Okay, good.
But I didn't have like lots of contact recently, so.
Okay, yeah, good guy. So all this to say, look at this. We got some comments, by the way. Let's see. Simon Verhoeven. Don't. I mispronounced that. Please don't be disappointed in me, friend. Hello to both of you. Hope you enjoyed Devoxx UK. Looks like the team's once again set up a great event. Yes, they have. Absolutely amazing. What do you think of the energy, by the way?
It's wonderful. I think this is one of my favorite Devoxx shows.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And then it always feels like very vibrant. I love it.
Me too. And I do my presentations with code so that I don't have to speak English. Right? The code speaks for itself. That's why I don't do slides, because slides are a language-centric thing, right? But if I can enjoy English, then every now and then I like to do it. It's not like it adds too much to my talks, but it can be nice to have, Whereas my code-driven demos work well in China or Japan or whatever, where there's no guarantee that they'll speak fluent English, or at least not fast fluent English. They might. A lot of times they do, but you just don't know. So I love code. But that said, here I'm in the UK. I'm speaking their language. Statistically they probably get what I'm saying if I speak a little faster. And so I just did a lightning talk, a 5-minute thing, and I was just like so liberating to be able to cut loose and actually like speak at my normal speed instead of the slow, deliberate sort of pacing that I normally am known for. So yeah, Devoxx UK, great energy, good show, big as usual. Hello from Poland, good to see you. Not to mistake with the other Oleg. There's another. Actually, I know 2 other Olegs. This is you're the one who's closest to me right now. But there's also Oleg Zerkoski. Do you know him?
Yes.
There's an Oleg. Is there like an Oleg fight club?
No. There's
Okay.
a little club, but we don't fight. We are very, very
Peaceful
friendly and peaceful.
Yeah. Okay. And then VJug rebooted. Yes. A lot more events again. Yes. Simon's great, says Simon. Yeah, I think he's talking about Maple.
Simon Maple.
But
yes.
but also you're great. So there's 2 Simons that are great in this discussion. Good morning from Germany. Yes, good morning. Although I suspect that won't last very long. I mean the morning, the good. I hope.
Do you know the name? That was Jurgen. We love all Jurgens.
Yeah, Jurgen. There's no such thing as a bad Jurgen either. I know one of the best Jurgens. He wouldn't hurt a fly. Oh, look at this. Oh wow. I'm currently writing my master's thesis on the topic of Docker multi-stage build. It's a superb technology. It is. It's a great technology. I have had it. Test containers is what made me love Docker, because Docker before felt like this other thing that I had to bring into my. I don't like having things that live outside my code, and so I want git clone run. I want somebody able to run their Spring Boot app and then get going as quick as possible, right? And
how do you feel about YAML?
I hate YAML. I loathe it, and I don't even like Docker files. I mean, I don't use YAML in my Spring Boot apps, almost never, right? And we support it. Application.yaml is a thing. But I feel like a hypocrite. I know I'm a hypocrite because I write Python code, which has all the same flaws as YAML, which is to say it's space sensitive. If somebody breathes on the tab or breathes on the spaces in the code, it goes sideways. It's not good. So I don't know. So let's see. Master from Atomic Jar. So wait, who moved to Docker in January?
Funny story, right? The Atomic Jars as a company,
Yeah.
right? We were making test containers, we were building products to make test containers usage easier and better, including the cloud backend for people who would like to offload running the containers to the cloud. And
He's here though.
hello, Edu. Yes, he's.
Edu, we're in the Hilton. Come over and say hi.
He was just here.
Oh.
I think he has a session in a little bit. So,
Okay, in that case, don't miss his session.
he needs to prep. So Atomic Jar was a startup.
Yeah.
Right. In December last year, Docker acquired Atomic Jar. So the test containers team, the Atomic Jar team, moved into a larger Docker company, and we are striving since then within the larger family.
Yes, but you're right. I forgot to mention that. But who is he? He says he moved to Docker. Is he talking about Dan?
I assume that it's either about Sergey,
Right.
or
you.
or me.
Okay.
But yeah, so the acquisition happened, and I think it's a great thing.
Yes, it is. Me too. And we'll talk about that in a second. Docker historically has been this like DevOpsy thing, and I didn't really appreciate it as much then because I wanted to git clone run, right? And to the extent that getting a piece of code that was written in Spring Boot let you get up and running, having to stand up a virtual machine or remember to tell people to run this Docker Compose file or whatever, it just felt like a distraction, right? But then it comes test containers, right? Test containers is, hey, it's Java code. You public static void main, you run the thing, or you run your tests, and suddenly you've got this supporting infrastructure.
Yeah.
And it's not, you won't forget it. You won't be sitting there going, okay, now what do I have to do?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just done. And also there's Docker Compose, Yeah, test containers made me appreciate Docker a lot more. Exactly. It really gave me, thank you. It gave me this ability to like, okay, Docker is working with me, not against me, right? And then now we have also Docker Compose support in Spring Boot. So now there's two different ways to enjoy your technology, your company's technology from Java.
No, absolutely. I think one of the main benefits of having test containers, right, over other Docker primitives that you can use to run containers, is the programmatic approach, right? It gets you all the things that you can do. It gives you the API to deal with containers, and it brings it to your IDE, to the place where you actually can learn things, right? And you can explore things there naturally. Do you read documentation?
Well, okay.
Be honest.
Well, yes, but that's because I get paid full time to do it. If I weren't, I wouldn't.
Yes. So I think it was somewhere early in the days of test containers, we figured out. Well, I didn't join the team back then, but like we as a community, as an industry, figured out that things that are available to developers from within the IDE work much better than things that are described in the documentation. If I can, as a developer, type dot and then explore what I can do with particular objects,
right?
And if the API is kind of aptly named where I can recognize what I need to do, right, with it, then it's much more discoverable,
right?
And that allows us also to sort of nudge developers into doing the right thing with just exposing them slightly opinionated API about that makes making the right thing easier and makes making the sort of the wrong thing, well, not the best practice thing.
It's not
a little
easy
bit
to do
harder.
the wrong thing.
Yes. It's,
make the right thing, make the hard things easy, and make the impossible things hard.
That's the other thing. Make the right things natural, and make the corner cases or maybe special things where you need to understand what you're doing before you do this, make it a little bit more cumbersome, so you actually can prove that you understand what you're doing. So,
good morning.
Good morning, Anish.
So you know what? One of the ways where it comes through is, unless you have a specific inclination, you're using a generic container in test containers, right? So there's these great DSLs.
Yes. So
specializations.
There is a DSL for defining how exactly you want to run and configure the containers.
Right.
And there is the sort of the best practices and idioms, what you want to expose to your end user, to an application developer, like using the same test suite for like a convenience API, right? To make your application connect to those services,
right?
Sort of what the Spring Boot integration currently does with service connection,
right?
But,
so good.
But if this is, there could be some other things, right? Like you can expose certain configuration options with that. But I would slightly disagree. As an end user, you would probably more naturally use the test containers module ecosystem for running particular technologies.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. You get the DSL for each, like you have a Postgres container, you have a Redis one, etc.
Yes.
And I'm saying those are there, but in the ways that, what I was trying to say was, test containers is a Java API. It can benefit from polymorphism, which you get in the Java language, which makes it very intuitive, which is, unless you have a DSL, you're going to use this base thing. Yes. And then if you want a specialization, you have that, and it's exposed in this very object-oriented way, whereas that's not intuitive if you think about containers, and Docker and all that.
Yes,
it just
exactly.
felt very natural for a Java developer to integrate.
Being in code allows us to use abstractions and allows us to package the small, particular kind of sort of niche integrations with technologies that you want to run in containers as libraries. Yeah. So you can add a library, and boom, suddenly you have an Elasticsearch container, or
so good,
or you have like a Llama container.
Yeah.
Right. And then in one line of code you can get the
right ports and the API endpoints. And
yes, and you don't need to know what are those.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to understand how to run Kafka in a Docker container.
And there's a DSL.
Exactly. There is just this abstraction that is there for you. And if you do need a specific setup, you can do this. Yeah. Right? You can either extend the configuration of the module, or you can run anything that runs in a Docker container using the generic container API.
Right.
But like in the 80-90% of use cases, you don't have to, because there is a community who also created and runs things similar
Right.
way, and then you just enjoy the benefits of that.
I love it. And which is the other thing is that you start to realize what's important when you see the Java generic container API, because it's like, okay, I want the exposed ports, I need the container name. Great. Now I've got a working understanding of what the table stakes are for getting a container up and running. And then you dive into the specialized ones. It's like, okay, well, this thing, I need a certificate for this particular container. So there's an API method for that, or I need a whatever, I need username and password. So that gets us to the next thing, which is it's really easy to, in Java, stand up a container now. How do I know how to connect to it, right? And you and me and Sergey, we, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I think it was January
21 or 22?
2022 maybe.
Okay, so 2 years ago, we put together a
prototype,
which we were trying to make it so that you could automatically connect to these containers from Spring.
Yes.
Right. And it was it worked, but I think what they did end up doing, which looks nothing like what we did, I think it was pretty good too. So I'm just really pleased about that. At least I think that prototype set the fire. That
yes, that inspired, and I think that was a talking point for a while. And then when so what we did the basic integration was doing Spring Boot and test containers. So test containers primitives would be like a natural part of your application lifecycle.
Yeah.
So you don't only get the containers environment while you're running tests, but if there is nothing API like test specific in an API, it's just code. Right. So we also wanted to bring that experience to running your application locally when you are just running your application. Right. And then some months later, Spring Boot 3.1, I think, unveiled the integration. And it was, of course, more thorough and more generic, and
it's well done.
Yes, it was better engineered than the prototype. So now when I have my Spring application, when I go to Spring Initializer and I click test containers, I get the tighter integration. I get this entry point into my app, so I can run it with containers out of the box. And I think it got to that point of where your project become clone and run.
Clone run. I love this.
Clone and run.
I have a. Oh yeah, exactly. But so there's okay. I have this. I stole this demo from my colleague Cora Berkeley. You know Cora. She's, oh my god, like so smart. And she has this amazing demo that she did as part of our keynote for last year's Spring One, right? And she was introducing virtual threads
support.
Yeah, and so she needed an example where she could stand up she wanted to isolate network traffic and congestion and latency and internet and Wi-Fi. All these things get in the way of understanding what virtual threads does to non-blocking I/O. So it makes sense in her example. She wanted to force a artificial endpoint that would then block and create scarcity of resources in the thread pool, right? So she used HTTP bin Go, right? It's a container.
Yeah. Well, it's an application in a container.
Well, yeah, but it runs in exactly. It runs so she was using this container, and I was trying to figure. I was looking at her code, and I'm like, oh, this is so. It struck me. She's brilliant, and so obviously when she does things, it's like, oh, this is so intentional and well thought out. She used test containers to spin this up, and then she set up Spring Boot and then ran that with the spring.threads.virtual.enabled equals true or false.
Yeah.
Against that endpoint. So you have an app that creates traffic to this HTTP Go container, but it itself acts as a web app. And it made my ability to understand what was going on so much easier. If I had to dig, I was struck by this because I got the demo in like 10 minutes. I got it. She had just done such a good job in test containers. Really, that would have been the missing piece.
Yeah, this I think a more generic thing besides Core is obviously brilliant.
Yeah.
But this having this self-contained environment for that you can access from code and you can control from code is a missing piece, that it gives so much power to you as a developer. And I don't know if you thought about this as well or not, very often, very often we're accustomed to running services in containers,
Sure.
right? Like so, like the HTTP bin application or your database
Right.
or your message worker.
Yeah.
But what you can also run in containers are tools.
Oh, right.
Right.
Like, yeah.
So this is interesting. So when you're working with a setup, say your Spring Boot application, and then it writes through Redis,
Right.
right? And you're using like just a Redis
CLI.
Container or something,
Okay.
right? And then very often you need sometimes you have tools that like in your IDE and you can connect to a database and you can see what's inside. But sometimes there are like specialized tools, right? And then you can run them in containers as well.
Right.
You can also programmatically put that into your code, right? So whenever you run Redis, you can also run, for example,
The Redis CLI.
Redis, either Redis CLI or Redis Insight, and then you will get like a dashboard or something. Or when you run a Kubernetes cluster
Right.
via test container, right? You can also just augment the code, and then like
Use
10
kubectl.
lines of code, you can say have a container with K9s, which is the tool.
Kinesis. Yeah. Is it something else?
K, I think Kinesis is. I don't know. K9s, like it's a command line tool that allows you to do things with Kubernetes cluster.
Oh, okay.
And then you can put it in a container. You can expose it at a web terminal, and then you run your application. You run the Kubernetes cluster. You run the tooling in containers as well, which again, like you abstract away parts of your tooling. So
you don't
like it's the sky's the limit for what you can achieve.
So this is a great point because you're right. If I had a Java program that shelled out to a CLI,
yeah,
right, that would be well, first of all, very hacky because the CLI interfaces are different sometimes from operating system to operating system. And if you test against this version of the CLI on your Mac and you go to production in Linux, which is like 2 years old, you might have an older one. They might have different flags, whatever. So having that tool as a CLI, as a container, first of all, you've pinned it down. It works portably across both any environment where you test it. Also, it doesn't have to exist on the operating system before you start it up because you use test containers. It'll download it lazily, right? Brilliant. Actually, I never really thought about that. That's a great point. I have some code that I might try that with today.
It's also
I'm using FFmpeg. That's another one where it's just like I want that as a Java API. That's really brilliant.
Yes, and you can run it in a container. It's also like I had this very like. So you can both encapsulate tools in containers and spin them with test containers, right? So they're part of the life cycle.
Right.
So you don't have to spend your memory cycles for remembering about vertical tooling.
Right.
But you can also like FFmpeg, you can encapsulate some CLI utilities or like libraries with their setup.
Yeah.
I had this funny, it's a half-abandoned, one of those half-abandoned projects that where I did something just to test it, and then it became a stale repo on GitHub. I had the Maven profiler project where I would instrument how much certain Maven stages would take time, bring that, and then how much CPU and RAM would be used at all the times, right?
Yeah.
I would put that into a text file, right? And then I would like to show that as a graph.
Okay.
Right, and then because very often we run build tools in environments where there is no display, right? Like GitHub Actions, right? I needed something that prints to to terminal,
Right.
So, and I searched around, and one thing that I found was this Python library called Platile.
What is Platile?
It's a Python library that uses the Braille font.
Oh my
To
goodness!
have
You're
better
kidding.
resolution of characters, so you can do like a higher, like how ASCII art works, right?
Right.
Like you have those brute slashes and dots and stars, right? So you have like low resolution picture. Right? Platili used the Braille font to have a higher resolution picture. So but that's a Python library, and it uses some native dependencies. Platili, T and double L. With O.
Oh,
instead
PTU.
of- No. Okay.
Oh God, help me! We're typing on the internet right now.
This. I think it like look.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, folks. This is if you're listening to the podcast, just imagine you're
It's
seeing this.
No, it's really like it's something that is very elegant, and you're like, yeah, it makes sense in retrospect, right? To use that because look how cool it looks. It's actually like, look, you have graphs, you have
Wow.
histograms, and you have like so. And I use that, and it's a Python library, so I containerize that, and then at the end of my Maven build, which would have access to test containers anyhow, because you would test with test containers,
Right.
would shell out to this Docker container and plot my graph for CPU and memory, and then spit out the results to the terminal. And I could use that in my GitHub Actions to see whether my size of the
Wow.
worker size is enough, or am I pushing the limits and I need to increase the worker size for something. So like a very basic observability tool, like sort of a napkin math observability for my Maven build.
That's freaking awesome, actually. I really am. I'm sitting here just thinking, I've got a program that uses FFmpeg, and I was just dealing with this. I got it working on my Mac. It was fine. I then deployed to Kubernetes, which is using, I'm using Docker images, and it's like a slightly older version of Ubuntu there, and the FFmpeg was slightly different, and there's some weird issues there. This would solve all that.
Yeah.
And I would just have to make sure I could run containers, but of course I can run containers from within a container, right? That's kind and all that. So that's really brilliant. And actually, and you're right, all this AI stuff, so much of that is happening in the Python world. That doesn't mean you're excluded from it, especially if there's a container. Did you ever see, do you know Jessie Fazell?
Yes.
Legend, right? She's so brilliant. And I remember at one point she was saying she had her operating system. It was like the absolute most basic barren Linux installation, and then every tool she used was a container.
Yeah.
Like her whole world was just containers, right? She was using containers to start up other containers. She's using containers to cat files and do ls and
I think
everything.
There are also some operating system, some Linux flavors. I might be mistaken. I think one of them was Fedora Silver, Light Silver, Fedora Silver something, where every program is containerized from the OS perspective, and then so they are all isolated and you can run. And I don't think it got like a very much traction, but it's an interesting concept. And I'm sure there are more of them, right? It doesn't have to be Fedora,
right?
But
good.
But
yeah, that's amazing. I really am. I'm actually super glad you just. It's so obvious when you say it, but it's so freaking brilliant. I never even thought about it. I'm gonna do a sprint this weekend and see if I can move my. I've got a thing that's doing exactly this.
Yeah.
And you can pass in stuff via mounts, so it's not like the data is invisible to the program. Oh,
you can do mounts. You can copy files into that if you want to isolate better. You can copy files out. So you can get. Yeah, it's very, very natural.
But with FFmpeg, the files are like multi-gigabyte, right? So I want them they're in a volume anyway.
Yeah, you can do that.
Oh, that's so
for
good.
Sure.
Anyway, and you can do all that from Java, and so nice tape safe Java DSL.
Yeah. You can also do that from like 10 other languages that have test containers library implementations. But
nobody uses those anymore. Come on, Java. And by the way, test containers started in Java, right? Like
yes, the Java library is the first one that was created, and then the others were mostly. It's the most advanced one to date currently. We are also .NET and Golang libraries are very, very popular and growing very much in those ecosystems. And then we have a number of other implementation, Node.js, Python, and we have Haskell, Ruby, Rust, Elixir.
Yeah, nice.
I think also those smaller languages, it's very, very interesting. You would be maybe asking questions like, why do we need the test containers library in Elixir? Like how? But it's an open source project, right? And most of those implementations started as the community effort, where somebody would start using those languages, and they come from the Java background, and they would start missing this incredible developer experience that test containers offers. And then they would just create the open source project, say this is test containers Elixir or something, and then they would work with the team. And then because you also have the blueprint of the Java implementation,
right?
And the core API, there is like the API surface is not that great, right? You need the generic container primitives and some API that you can probably recreate in a matter of well, weeks, not months, right? And then the team helps, and then you can get into the test containers organization, and then we try to take care and help our maintainers to move through the hurdles and help. So a selfish plug: if you are watching this and you are into PHP, we'd love to have test containers PHP. So it's a big ecosystem. So yeah, just join slack.testcontainers.com and drop me a note. It would be very interesting to.
I'm a little offended. Did you just use my channel to propagate PHP? It's disgusting. Disgusting. Get him out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's a.
No.
But you should definitely contribute to test containers.
We love all languages, and
it's not a language.
Look, Josh. If people test their applications better,
That's true.
I think we would live in the world with better software,
flying cars,
and I think we would that can help the world to be a slightly better place as well, right?
It's like that Michael Jackson song, "Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me." Right? That's the outcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Test containers are great. Yeah, absolutely. I don't even. But so there's no state in PHP most of the time, right? Like, how's that going to work? I guess you're not. You're just doing it in the test, though.
You need to test, right? And you need to do integrations with the databases and your message brokers, and modern PHP is I think not. I don't know when the last time you looked at PHP, but I think modern PHP is nothing like you remember from your use days.
No, I've seen it. I've used Laravel. And it's still the same problem, right? The same problem as always, which is if Java is verbose, imagine adding a $sign and the word var to everything, and then getting that's PHP.
I'm just saying, everyone deserves to have a framework tests. And a library that simplifies integration tests.
I agree.
Gives great developer experience.
Yes, it would be great if we could build a test containers module that, when it starts up in PHP, tells them to rewrite the code in Java, instead of helping them with a container. Like, it's just like here's how you get better tests. Use a real language. Something else. I don't know. Oh God. Terrible language. There's other languages. No, just anything.
We'll have all languages.
Anyway.
Right.
Agree to disagree. Moving on.
So moving on. Right. So test containers is now on Docker.
Which is great. This is the other thing. Okay. We were talking about this a little bit before. It was the Devoxx kind of company, and they still have a huge role there. Obviously, it's the most important. There's no single technology that I can point to that has done more to move us into the modern world of GitOps and DevOps and all that than Docker. Obviously, super valuable. And we just mentioned Docker Compose and all that kind of stuff. But what I've noticed of late, since they kind of pivoted a little bit a few years ago, was they've also had this really full-throated embrace of Java. Right? You've got Atomist. Rod Johnson's company is now living there, right? You've got Atomic Jar, both two atoms. I wonder why. Two companies with the word atom in it. You've got Atomic Jar there now. Great. So my point is, I know at least two amazing organizations full of people that just live, breathe, and rule in Java, right? Amazing people. And they organize, and I know people, at Docker that are like super high up now, and they're coming from the Java background, so they're making it a really great place for and by Java people, for the JVM. I love today's Docker. It's still Docker Compose. You've got amazing tools, but now you've got all this great tooling for developers. Yeah, developers, not just operators, And then what's that thing? So I have a friend, Christian Dupuis, who's now there, and he was working on like some insight. It's like it's in Docker desktop. By the way, not I know this is like ridiculous, but I'm just gonna say it because I think I don't have Podman, and I do pay for my Docker desktop, right? And it's a very easy decision to make, and it felt like the most obvious thing in the world to do, and I think you should do it too, right? There are two companies that I want to support: the Java team and Docker. These are people and of course JetBrains, and there's a few companies out there that I just like. They take my money. I can't give it to you fast enough. Where's my Docker here? Okay, so go to the dashboard. Scout, is that the new one? That's the observability stuff, right?
Yes.
The image, this analysis. So Christian, I think, was working on this stuff. Really cool, right?
Docker Scout, yes, this is the a security tool that we are trying to bring. I don't work with Scout very closely, so
Sure.
Pardon if I'm
No problem.
not using the marketing message about Scout, right? But this is what I think it brings information and incentive to look at the security vulnerabilities and the containers and analyze them and understand what the application dependencies are
Right.
to the tool that you are using anyhow as a developer, right? So it
So
moves that security very much to the left.
Yeah.
Because like whatever anyone
Nothing-
can say, right?
Yeah.
If there are any issues with your application, with your code, right?
Yep.
You can only fix them in development. Some issues you can fix with configuration in production,
Perfect.
right? But
That's exactly right. That's
but like,
perfectly
as a
said.
developer, you have this ultimate responsibility that it's going to be you.
Whose neck is on the line.
It is you who introduces those issues and vulnerabilities and everything, but it is also you who fixes them, right?
That is such a great way to think about it. Yes.
So if you can move things to, if you can shift things to the left, right? If you can allow developers have a better insight into security aspects,
Right.
right? If you can allow developers run tests easier locally rather than wait like a day for CI to come back with a result to you.
Or worse, somebody in production gets it and you're like, oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then all that results in a better developer experience, in a better productivity, and well, saves ultimately money for the company.
Well, not to mention it's better for the developers because, but if they find a bug in production 2 weeks from now,
Yes.
the development team's already moving on to other stuff. Now they have to go back and context switch back to what they were doing 2 weeks ago to figure out to bisect the bug.
Yes.
It's just better to find it on the spot.
And you get paged in the night, and hopefully use your developer tools during the day
to avoid the nighttime pages. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
such a natural thing to do.
So yes, this Docker desktop is like a dashboard for a lot of container-oriented tools and things. There was also Docker debug. Have you seen that? Have you heard of that?
No, but I'm very. Show me, what is Docker debug?
So Docker debug is.
Can I restart, or do I need to show you something?
I don't know what I can talk about this, right?
Okay.
Like it's a podcast.
It's a podcast,
right? So Docker debug is a utility that you can use from Docker, and it allows you to debug and work with images and containers that come from images that lack tooling that you need for working with it, right? So how in production you would very often use images that are distroless,
right,
or that lack certain like development tooling. You don't have an editor there because your application doesn't need an editor. So Docker debug brings sort of if I'm correct, a Nix OS overlay, and that brings the tools, and there is a lot of like integration with Magic, so it kind of attaches to a container, right? And even if the container lacks tools, the tools come from this overlay, and you can go in there and debug things in containers, even if they are production grade.
So you don't have to rebuild the source container. You can just add these things on the layer on top, which is so brilliant.
Yes, and you can do other things, like you can expose additional ports if you need to do that. It's a great way to have better access to your containers that lacks tooling.
Right.
And well, you can debug terminated containers.
Oh. How do you do that? Oh, you just look at the image.
With the Docker debug, right? Because you attach the process tree and the file system tree somehow in it. But like if the process tree is no more, you just don't have the processes running, right? And then you can debug images as well without a container, right? It just attaches the file system. It's a very interesting tool to bring to developers.
Does that work for Kubernetes? Like, how do I get access to those that are like I have a job that starts and stops, and I want to get back into it? Is that possible?
So I think Docker debug works for Kubernetes, but I don't know how to use. I'm not sure if it's possible or how to use that as a remote Kubernetes cluster. But send us some feedback. There's a team working on this, and I'm sure they would love hearing that you think this is a great idea, and that you would like to have more visibility an ability to work with remote jobs like this.
That's really cool. That is really, really cool. You've opened my mind up. Actually, I mean, I always learn something from my guests, but today I have like actionable. I'm gonna go try it out. I'm gonna try the Docker Scout stuff, the Docker debug, and most importantly, the idea of running CLI tools as a tool, as a
test container.
runtime and operating system agnostic,
Yeah.
pinned, well-known, managed quantity that is a Docker container.
Yeah,
that's freaking brilliant, really brilliant, actually, and it's so obvious. And I'm actually ashamed. Plus, runtime.git, runtime.exec, I think, or whatever it is in Java. It's actually, because the operating system shell handling is different from one operating system to another, you get different results there, even if you have the same version of the CLI. Sometimes, the spaces are different. So that's, just so brilliant. Actually, I feel very stupid. I feel bad about. Hey, I know this is a dumb question. Do test containers work in GraalVM? Can I run? Does the API for launching Docker images run well in GraalVM native images?
I think so. Okay. I think so, because there is this repository for metadata. The GraalVM team, together with the community, works on to provide some additional GraalVM related hints and configuration for libraries that don't have them embedded in the thing. I think I've seen test containers there.
Okay.
So
we should try.
I think it's supposed to work. I haven't tried that myself because
you've been busy. I get it. Yeah.
No. Because classically, test containers targets the pre-production use cases.
Right. You're in tests.
Right? And then local development tests. Right. But native image, for me, is very much a sort of a production optimization thing.
Yeah.
Where you want to get the predictable performance, maybe less resource intensive, less resource overhead for running individual applications. So historically, like in my mind, until I think there were slightly separate stages of the DevOps cycle.
For sure.
Right. But like, since you want to use this as a FFmpeg in production through the test containers API, which you can.
Yeah.
But I think it should work. I don't think it would be.
After the show, we could just hack together something real quick and try it.
Yeah, we can try it.
I'm sure it's not too bad. Okay. Really, thank you for your time. This is a great move for everybody that you're now at Docker. Two of my favorite companies doing really great things together.
Thank you.
It's one company now, one unified division, which is amazing. Docker is growing, by the way. For good reason, it's super popular. You have like all this other great stuff. We didn't even talk about any of that other good stuff. Like
yes. Are you anywhere into AI now, Gen AI?
Yeah, we have a project called Spring AI.
Oh, wonderful.
We should talk about that. Yeah, I use it all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but I think we.
That's the next episode.
Yeah, next episode. Tune in next time. The same spring time, same spring channel. This has been Oleg and Josh. Where can they? I'm on the internet, but are you on the internet?
I am on the internet. Yes.
And so, where can they find you?
I must almost universally go by @Šelajev. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. I have a SHELAJEV. Yes, like this. I have an amateur, non-professional YouTube channel where I.
Oh, what's that?
@Šelajev as well.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a YouTube. Okay.
I sort of. Yeah, you can subscribe. Since I go to conferences from time to time, I just do like those short vertical videos with people asking them random questions about.
We did some in Java Zone.
Yes.
Oh, that's what happened to those. That's cool.
Yeah, and then there are not very many of those, but yeah, you can check it out. I think there's a decent collection of individuals that are represented there.
Most of them good, save me, of course.
No, if you want.
Nicely done.
Yeah, and then, but yeah, like I would love to talk to you. If you have any questions about test containers specifically, I think the best place is to go to slack.testcontainers.com. And there's a whole community of people who are into test containers, so they probably also have seen your problems, or they can help answer questions. The maintainers are hanging out there. I'm hanging out there, so you can just, that is the most probably interactive channel to talk about test containers. And of course, those are open source projects on GitHub. Just like drop us an issue or a discussion item or anything like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
Oh no, that's it again.
Okay.
Do the thingy.
Okay. Oh, it's so frustrating. I gotta go back to bed now and try again tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Happy testing.
Thank you.